with computing power, processing power, storage capability, etc. Right? But cloud computing, on the other hand, allows us to outsource computing itself. So what does computing here means? Computing here means all the services provided by a computer or a server or any such machine or a device, that is computing. Every, like, storage is also a part of computing. Usage of resources like processor and everything, like RAM and everything, it's also computing, right? So for cloud, we just need an internet connection and an average performance PC, right? And we can access unlimited storage spaces and much faster processing power. So, can anyone tell me, where is cloud? Where is it situated? Is it is it tangible? Is it properly there in a certain place, a data center or something, or is it more like an abstract idea? It's actually an abstract idea. So there are a lot of resources which are distributed around the world, the data centers, the servers, and everything. So cloud is a platform, or rather, I would say a soft platform, a software-based platform, which connects these resources and creates a pool of resources. And this pool of resources can be accessed by anyone at any time, and only they can access the amount of the computing power required, right? So how does it look like? That's why we call it as cloud, because it is formless, it is intangible, it is resizable, and it is scalable, right? We can reduce the size. So cloud doesn't have a shape. Cloud keeps changing its shape, and that's why this is called cloud, because we are not talking about a certain hardware configuration with certain amount of RAM and certain amount of processing power anything. But cloud is very flexible, and it can provide us vast scalability, so that we can, whenever required, we can upgrade the processing power or the RAM required or the storage required easily within a click. We just need to pay for that. That's it. So scalability is a very important issue, and we'll discuss about it in the cloud features part. So, okay, so so I think everyone would have understood that this electricity analogy with cloud. Okay, this is a very vastly used analogy used to describe what is a cloud. So first, we'll right away go to the cloud services. What are the different cloud services which are available today for people to use, and for the different companies and firms to use? So the most like popular thing, which is usually termed as cloud, is the storage services, right? The Google Cloud, Dropbox. Actually, Dropbox was a very revolutionary concept which came, and it like very made cloud services very famous. So what it did is just provide storage spaces which can be accessed from everywhere. So there are basic storage services that are provided by different cloud platforms. You can store whatever data you want. You can log into that account from anywhere, any PC or mobile or any device, and you can access the data. And the data is existent in the cloud, and it's mirrored in various servers. So you don't need to worry about data, right? Then comes the database services. So what is the difference between storage and database? Database is more like a record which is easier to query, which is easier to filter or search, right? So see, storage services are for raw data which is not meant to be processed anymore, but database services are mostly for some data which needs to be analyzed in the future, or which needs to be accessed in a proper manner. Suppose a text, suppose an employee account, a lot of employees are there, and you need to keep their account, and you need to keep track of their activities, and also you use a database service. And there are various database services. So conventionally, there are two type of database services. One is based on SQL, and the other is non-SQL. So SQL, or we call it SQL, is a very popular database service, which provides a language so that you can search, filter, merge, and do certain operations within the database. So it makes a proper language for that. and it provides us a proper language for that, and we can access the data very easily. We can modify the data very easily, programmatically. We don't need to do it manually. Okay, we can code that thing, and it can be operated in manner. And the other non-SQL services like JSON are a little different from the SQL services. They don't have features like SQL, but they are good in their own field. Okay, so they are document type of database services like MongoDB and all. So cloud services provide us database services too, like Amazon Web Services also have different database services. They also provide both kind of database services. You can access database of type SQL and of type non-SQL also. Then there comes compute services. Compute services means kind of like accessing the hardware part. Okay, so you can utilize the computing power. See, suppose you don't have a very powerful PC and you want to run a huge code. You want to train a huge model with like say 50,000 pictures of an artificial intelligence thing, and it actually takes a lot of time in a conventional PC to do that. Instead, you use the cloud services provided by Google, the cloud computing services provided by the Google. So they offer you the computing power. You have to pay that much amount of money which you need to deploy, and all the processing that would have happened in your PC now happens in the cloud. Cloud means their hardware. So how they manage the hardware is a totally different issue. The hardware is distributed all along, and it all is consolidated using the network and that cloud platform. So everything that I want to run in my PC can be run in a different PC, in a virtual PC, say. So that is one service, which is a very important service. So all the computing that we do in our this laptop or PC, that can be done in the cloud, and that is scalable. We can add more and more computing power. Suppose we think that we need more processing power, we can add more cores of CPUs which are deployed there. And then comes identity and access management, right? So this is a very commonly used feature. We know that we can use Google sign-in everywhere, right? So how does this work? Google Cloud provides this Google sign-in option, and other third parties can integrate to Google sign-in. And whenever we log into some other website or some service, we can simply sign in through Google. That is one part. That is identity part. So third parties and even the conventional parties can identify you as a registered member. And the access management part is a little different. I think most of you would have used things like Google Docs and Google Slides and all. So access management, see, suppose there's a company, and inside that company there are various, so that company is using a cloud service, and they have various resources like Word documents and some other files which are stored in the cloud. And suppose different people are there with different roles. Okay, there are some UI UX designers, there are some backend coders. So different people don't have to access everything that is related to the company, right? So they all have registered for the cloud. They all are members of the cloud, but they don't want to give access for everything to everyone, right? So they can make a management system through access management system. So they can identify the roles, and that roles can be given access to certain things. Like the UI UX designers won't be given access to the backend code, and they can be given access to only the front end part, right? So in that manner, this identity and access management, which is also termed as IAM, when you register for cloud service, you'll find that in the link you will find that IAM.that cloud service. So this is a very popular thing. Then there comes content delivery services. So for those people who have done with app development or web development would be knowing this. So we use different libraries or different pre-built platforms for our web apps or some native apps also. So these libraries are stored in some other place, right? So every time our website is launched, that library has to be fetched from somewhere. Either we download the whole library and deploy it in our own system wherever the website is deployed, and it can access it locally. But say I don't want to access everything, I don't want to store everything in my host account because it will increase the say the amount of storage required, right? So in that case, I can use a content delivery service. So I'll give an example for a very simple example. Suppose I made a website and there's a font. There's a specific type of font which is not available everywhere. So I'm not installing that font in my website. What I'll do is I'll import that font. I'll just provide the link of that font in my website, and whenever that website will load, it will fetch it from, say, Google servers. Google also provides Google fonts. So every time my website is opened, it will access the font from the Google servers, right? There comes analytic services after that, and this is a very common thing, especially for data scientists. So cloud is proving itself useful for everyone. Even the data scientists also find it very useful because you have a lot of data, you have database services, you store a lot of data, you can manage a lot of data, but that data has to be, at the end of the day, has to be used for analytics, right? So you need to get insights from that data, and then only that data is any meaningful, right? So you can draw, you can plot, you can predict trends through analytics services. Then there comes application services. Application services are nothing but are the top level things which most of the people are using, like Gmail. So the main thing is the Google Cloud, and Google Cloud is providing a complete service on itself, like Gmail. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to create a mailing account from scratch, right? You don't have to create a network of mails, and but they are providing a Gmail service. Like we know that we have a Gmail service specifically for VIT. So VIT does not have to like completely make everything from scratch. They are providing the cloud service. They just have to pay for it, and they just have to choose the username and everything, and that everything is managed by the cloud provider. In this case, Google is a cloud provider. And then comes deployment and management. So we make different websites, we make different web apps, we make native apps. So the files used by that apps, or the different scripts that run on that apps, need to be deployed somewhere. It cannot be saved on a local system every time, right? So it has to be deployed somewhere where it can run. Suppose a Java file is there, it has to be deployed and has to run every time a certain event triggers, right? So in that case, cloud services provide deployment so that you can deploy any type of code which can run over their servers and just provide back the result or the data provided by them. So deployment as well as management of that thing is easily possible through cloud services, right? So now comes different cloud service models. And this is what you will hear a lot when you will like formally study cloud. So there are three basic layers of cloud service models. I'll rather say layers because these are kind of a stack thing. So at the top is software as a service. So cloud services, which are software themselves, that you don't need to configure anything. You just need to register and start doing, like Google Docs. They are providing the like the whole interactive screen to make docs and everything. They're providing Gmail, everything. So here we can see like monitoring anything. We'll be discussing this part in the hands-on session, the monitoring part. Then there's content. You have blogger.com, which is a part of Google Cloud, and then that blogger thing, you just need to post your blogs, and you just don't need to configure anything. You just don't need to worry about the HTML part or the CSS part of that website. You just put the post and it works for you. Then there's collaboration, like there are different things like Google Talk and Slack, and Microsoft Teams is a kind of collaboration platform. Then for communication, like chat apps and all. So these are all dependent on cloud, which are using cloud and providing cloud services, direct services, which can be used by any user who doesn't know any coding or anything related to that, right? And even finance, which is usually the analytics part. Then there comes platform as a service. So this is a little tricky thing. Here, they are not providing the service itself. They are providing a platform where you can deploy your own service, right? So suppose I want to make my own email service, okay, some Kmail or something, suppose like that. So in that case, either I'll start working from scratch, I'll set up a server, I'll buy a server hardware, and then write the OS for that. I'll install the OS for that, and then I'll deploy different software, and then start doing everything from scratch. And it will be really messy, because I just want a simple email service to run, and I don't need to configure everything from scratch, right? So in that case, they're providing a platform. Suppose you know that your whole project runs on Java platform, okay? So they'll just provide a Java runtime in the cloud, which can be easily deployed, and you can access it through using WebSocket APIs or something like that. So in this case, you would have heard this Heroku thing. It's a very good thing and free, where you can deploy your web apps and everything for very less cost. And there's AWS. AWS is a player, a big, huge player in the cloud services platform. Amazon is doing most of its business not in the e-commerce part, but this cloud part. Okay, so Amazon is huge because it's providing cloud services to almost all the major companies in the world. So it has a lot of different services, cloud services, and most of them are either platform as a service or infrastructure as a service. So this is a really simple thing, platform as a service. You just can deploy whatever you have. You can deploy your own software. You can deploy your own service inside the cloud in that case. So it can be either object storage, as you can see here in the image. You can store the database part. The database service is a platform as a service part. Then this identity and access management that we used earlier, so it is also a platform as a service part. See, runtime. So this runtime provides an option for us to like run different types of codes, different type of extensions like Java, C, or Python, or any other type of scripts. Then there are queuing services in which you can queue different types of tasks or services in their database and all. Okay, and then comes the thing which is at the most bottom part of the stack, and which is called infrastructure as a service. So this is certainly a very different thing, because here they are just providing their physical resources with us. Okay, so they are so I want to deploy everything from scratch, but what I don't want to do is I just don't want to buy any computers or any servers. So what I'll do is I'll hire some cloud platform. I'll take some cloud platform, ask for a certain amount of computing power, a certain amount of number of servers, or a certain amount of storage, and then I'll deploy everything. I'll put my OS, I'll put my software, I'll put my everything. But the one thing I won't do is I won't buy the hardware and the maintenance. The maintenance will be done by the cloud provider only, and that's a huge. We'll talk about the benefits of the cloud in that thing. And as you can see, the main thing of the main advantage of cloud is it can be accessed from everywhere. In the laptops, the servers, desktops, tablets, phones, all are accessible easily. And okay, so we'll head on to the next part. So there are different cloud features, right? So these are there are some terms which you'll come across a lot when you'll start studying cloud computing formally. So this is a very main part of cloud service, is that it is on demand. It provides on demand service. Okay, so you don't need to configure everything at the beginning. This is how the agile systems work. You don't know everything in the beginning, how much you will require, or you don't need to figure out how many people will be using the service and all. You can just deploy everything. As your requirement grows, you can scale up, or if your requirement comes down, you can scale down. You don't need that much of computing power. You know that people are busy doing their business and now your service is not being used much, you can scale down at that time. So you'll have to pay less for that. Okay, so that same resource will be uh, uh, used by some other services at the same time, so you'll have to pay less. So on demand, if you want certain amount of processing power, computing or storage, something like that, you can instantly get that in a click. You just need to pay for that, and that's it. Then the performance part. So performance, through our conventional PCs, we can upgrade up to say i7 or maybe i9. Okay, we can get that much of computing power. You can have a huge storage also, 2 TB, 3 TB, 5 TB. Okay, but for a huge firm, they need huge performance. Or say if there's a low investment firm which is utilizing artificial intelligence and they want to run everything in their systems, so they can't spend a lot of money to buy huge GPUs and all to run their code. So in that case, you can just use the cloud services, and as I said, it is on demand. You can scale up, scale down anytime. Then this is a very famous term, ubiquitous. That's what cloud is. Ubiquitous means it is omnipresent. It can be accessed from everywhere. Okay, and that's a very advantageous part of cloud services. Say you don't need to be in the like a office every time, or you don't need to be in a certain place every time to access the cloud. You can access it from everywhere, as you know. Then this all leads to reduced costs. First, due to because you don't need to install any infrastructure. Suppose there's a company, right? Suppose there's a startup called ABC Limited, which needs to use IT infrastructure for its operations. So now it has two options. Either it goes for on-premise, which means it installs desktop, servers, storage spaces, networking, etc. inside its office, then configure all these things to be used by the office staff. But as you see, there are so many drawbacks of this approach. First of all, it takes a lot of time and capital investment to create this setup. And also, if the company wants to expand its resources, then again, it will have to invest a lot and restructure the system, right? And the worst part is that they'll need to have a maintenance team, a 24/7 maintenance team for all this setup to ensure minimum downtime, right? So what ABC Limited can do is instead go for a cloud-based approach. They can use the servers, the storage spaces, as well as virtual desktops. Yeah, you can get virtual desktops provided by the cloud platform and pay only for the amount used. See, this is what explains the pay per use model. You pay only for the amount used, and suppose you don't want to use much part in a certain time. Suppose in the night time, suppose you have a e-commerce website, and you know that in the night time you don't need much processing power because there are very few people who will be surfing through the net. So at that time, you can undeploy some of the resources, and you will save a lot of money for that. And say there's some festival season, and you need to increase the processing power of your system. You need to increase the user approachability. So in that case, you can increase the number of CPUs or increase the number of resources that are deployed for your system, and you just need to increase the pay for that, and that's it. So so they can use servers and these things, and you'll also get rid from the maintenance part, which is obviously done by the cloud provider. So if there's some system damage, a hardware system damage and everything, that all thing is taken care by the cloud provider. So it's not a headache for us. So why not use cloud, right? Then yeah, that's what explains outsource management. Okay, then elasticity is a very frequent term that is used in cloud services. Why elasticity? So elasticity means extreme flexibility, right? I explained you about the flexibility part, and it's the same. So in fact, many of the Amazon services, AWS services, are named as elastic, suppose elastic beanstalk or elastic compute, only because they are so flexible that within a second you can deploy a new extra resources, or within a second you can undeploy extra resources which you don't use. So it is very elastic. If you suddenly need 500 terabytes of storage, you just pay for that, and you get 500 terabytes of storage in no time. But the other case, in on-premise thing, you need to install everything from scratch, and that's a huge loss for the company. And then there's multi-tenancy. When we are making project reports, right? If there are group members more than 2, 3, then what we do is usually use Google Docs, and we edit everything at the same time. Right. So this multi-tenancy means we can access cloud, the same thing, the same file or the same documents at the same time, that can be accessed by different people at the same time. So this provides a very useful approach, a very safe approach also, and that's what makes cloud unique and very useful. So yeah, so if we talk about types of clouds, then there are very three basic types of cloud. There are private, public, and hybrid. So private clouds, suppose I started a company and I want a cloud space for my company, but I have some confidential or sensitive data that is stored in my cloud. So I don't want to share it to the mainstream. So I keep my cloud separated from the mainstream. Okay, I keep it everything private, everything protected, and only the people in my organization can access that cloud. So in that case, it is called a private cloud. The other thing, like Google Clouds, is a kind of public cloud. Anyone can access Google Clouds, right? And there's something called hybrid cloud. So hybrid cloud that provide options for the public cloud to make a private cloud within the public cloud, and that's uh, hybrid cloud. So these terms are really self-descriptive, so you would have understood about this. Then we'll move to the hands-on part. I hope every one of you have registered for IBM Cloud thing. So I want you all to log into cloud.ibm.com. If anyone of you have some doubt, you can ask me now. I hope every one of you have logged, made a registered for the IBM Cloud thing. And if you have logged in already, then please put a thumbs up in the chat part so that I can proceed explaining the hands-on part. So once you log in into the IBM Cloud part, you will land up in this kind of screen or dashboard. And I'm still waiting for other people to log into your IBM Cloud. And I guess the other people are really tired after the classes, so they might be sleeping. Anyone needs more time to register, or I'll proceed. If someone needs time to register or log in, just put in the chat message, or else I'll proceed. I'll just wait for 2 minutes. I guess most of you have logged in into IBM Cloud, so we proceed. So I hope everyone has landed into this kind of page called IBM Cloud with a search bar here at the top screen. If not, then just tell me. After you land in this page, just search for IoT platform. Just search for this thing called Internet of Things platform. You just type IoT platform and you'll get this thing. And again, guys, if anyone has any kind of doubt, you can right away ask me. Don't hesitate. Okay. I'm not a teacher. I'm one of your seniors only. Okay. So I know. So once you get this thing, you can open it. So this will take you to a screen called Internet of Things platform. So this is a cloud service provided by IBM Cloud. So there are various cloud services. We discussed only the major cloud services, but today cloud is providing everything, and even more than that. What? Okay, I'm getting some error. I'll refresh the page. If you are seeing some error, you can refresh the page. Okay, guys. So once you land into this page, just don't do anything. Just create an Internet of Things platform. I hope everyone has landed into this page. Okay, so someone is asking for me IoT platform search result 0. Okay, wait. Try to, okay, Hemprasad, try to search Internet of Things platform. Are you getting the same kind of screen that I got, the dashboard part, and the same kind of this search bar? You can unmute and ask anything if required. It's not an issue. See, guys, IoT platform. If you type IoT platform, you'll get this thing. It will say that 0 resource results found, but we don't need any resource results. We need this thing, Internet of Things platform. Inside catalog results, right? Catalog results, not resource results. Okay. I think you might have misunderstood this part. Yeah, fine. Okay, so we'll proceed. So after selecting that, you'll reach a launch, okay, you'll reach this kind of screen, and you just click on create here, the left side and the right side. So I'll create this thing. So this all thing is deployed in the London servers, right? So after that, you land in a page like this. So this is called IBM Watson IoT platform. This is a service provided by IBM, and we don't need any paid service. We need a very light service they are providing. See, these many different limits for our service. So this is a light plan, and we can launch. Click on launch. So you land in a different page in a new tab. So I'll share the other tab. So after you click on launch, you will reach to new screen, and this page is opening. I'm really sorry guys for my internet speed, but it's like that only. Yeah, it's loading now. Okay guys. So this is the screen that you'll land in, hopefully. So did you all get this screen? Just put a thumbs up in the chat box if you have landed to this screen called browse devices inside IBM Watson IoT platform. Yeah, okay. Most of the people have got it. So for the EC IoT people, I'll tell you one thing. This is a part of what we were taught in our subject called Cloud Computing and Information Security, which was a program core, I guess, for EC IoT people. So this is based on that thing only. This was the part of the lab component. So this will be really useful for you all in future if they plan to continue with the same curriculum. Okay, so most of the people have got the screen. Okay, so this is about integrating a sensor data into the cloud, so we can get the sensor data and put it into the cloud, and we can do whatever we want with the data later. But currently, we just need to integrate sensors data and put it in the cloud and show it somewhere in a graph kind of manner in a dashboard. Okay. So for that, we'll first need to create a virtual device. Okay. So see, everything that is in the hardware space has to be it has to be there in the virtual space also. Suppose I have a Arduino board or some Node MCU board, which is inside the hardware space. So I'll have to create an object for that hardware if I want to access the different data points from that. So to create that object, we'll just need we'll just create a new device. So first of all, just turn on this device simulator thing. So we currently don't have actual sensors with us. So what we'll do is we'll use a virtual sensor thing. So that is also provided by IBM Watson thing. So we'll get data from virtual sensors where you can manually adjust the data of the temperature or the humidity and everything. Okay, so we'll first create a device. I hope you have found this thing called create a device in the screen. Don't forget to turn on the device simulator thing. Here, just turn it on, then create a device. So after you click on create a device, just scroll up and you will get this thing called add device, right? So give any name of the device, say device type. So I'm putting a, say Node MCU 1 or something. Okay, I'll just put Node MCU here. Okay, in the device ID section, just put a number which you can remember. I'll just put 1 here, right? device type node MCU, device ID 1. You can put any number here. Then we'll click on next. There's some metadata about the device. We don't need to be specific about all the description of the device. So we'll skip this and click on next. Just stop me if you have lost the flow. You can ask me to get back at any time. Then there comes something called enter an optional token. So better put some string here, put some name or something like that here, which you remember. I'll just put my name and 123 here. Just remember this thing. We'll need it in future. Okay. So authentication token is here, my name and 123. You can put the same, your name and 123. Then we'll click on next. So after our device is created, no, okay, yeah, we just need to finish it. They are just confirming everything. Device type this, device ID 1, security token that we entered in the last part. And then we'll click on finish. So after we click on finish, this virtual device will get created. It's still okay. Yeah. So here, just don't refresh the page after this. We'll need these credentials. So these are the device credentials which you got. There's one thing called organization ID, which is part of this IBM Cloud thing. And there's device type called that we named MCU device ID. And then we'll need this authentication token, right? So you can see, you can scroll down and see all the different connection information. So connection status is disconnected. This we are not pushing any data to this virtual device. So there's no data here, right? See, there's the state, this empty state. There's no data in this device, and we didn't put these information, so we don't need this. Okay, so we'll now try to push some virtual data into this device. For that, you just Google. Okay, I'll send you a link of Watson IoT simulator. I'll just put the link in the chat box. I've put the link in the chat box, and you will land in a page like this. Wait, you'll land in a page like this after you open the link Watson IoT sensor simulator thing. How many of you got this page? I think most of you would have got this. Great, guys. You're following quite well. So here we need to put these four things. Okay, 6-digit organization ID, device type, device ID, and device token. So just open that page only. So here we have our organization ID. Copy this. Put it here. And our device type was, you can copy everything from there. I'm manually putting it here. Node MCU. Just don't forget to put the capitals where you have named it in that manner. Then my device ID was 1 and my device token was my name and 123. So this device token is kind of a password thing. That's why it's not shown here. And then I'll click on save changes, and it shows it showed connecting a little while ago, and now it's showing 1. 1 is my device ID, and this is the screen of IoT sensor simulator. So this thing, what it is doing is it's pushing some virtual data, like it's acting like a sensor, which is sensing some data and sending that data to the cloud. So the temperature currently is 15 degrees. I can decrease it manually, or I can increase it manually. And there are some other parameters called humidity. You can change the humidity manually. So it will act like the sensor is working and that it's sensing different values at different times. And in the same way, there are three properties: object temperature, temperature, and humidity. Okay. So if you're connected to your device, then you will see your device ID here in this place. Okay. Now come to the same screen where we got the organization ID and everything, the device credentials. We can scroll down and you can see a set of data in JSON format being pushed into our device. You can click on the data and you can see, so every device is having a name, a temperature value, humidity, and object temperature. So, and there's a timestamp also, which is the time received. And so every second or every some fixed interval of time, that data is being pushed into our device, and we are getting the data from the device. And you can expand here inside the state to check the current status, the current values of the different parameters. So how many of you have got the data coming into yours?
Can you show the setup again?
From where?
Like, can you set up a new device again?
Okay. So, okay. I'll try to set up a new device. So I'll click on devices. Just come here, click on, go to devices, click on devices, then click on add device. You'll land to a page here. Then put a device type. Now for the second device, I'll put Arduino. Then I'll say device ID 2 because I've already used one. Device type, device ID. The next, I don't need to put these descriptions, serial number and all. So I'll put on next. I'll put an optional token. So this is kind of a password. So I'll again put something that I remember. So I'll put my surname and 123. Is it clear for the one who asked?
Yes.
Okay. Then after next, click on finish. After clicking finish, you'll get the device credentials. These are the device credentials. Then open this tab called Watson IoT Sensor Simulator. I have shared the link in the chat box. So once you land in this page, you will need to enter 4 different things, and which are organization ID, the device type, the device ID, and the device token. So you need to put these things into the IoT sensor screen, and after that you will see that you'll get the data. So this is not the device which we are using. We'll go back to that. So here will be the list of all the devices that I've created, and see the status of this device is connected because I've already connected this device to a virtual sensor network. So, and this, the device which I created now, is not connected. I'll open this device. Okay. I'll open this device and I can see, I can browse through all the data. See, this data is being pushed into every second. This data is being pushed into. I can change the data. I can say reduce the humidity to say. Okay, I think I have not projected that screen. Okay, so yeah, you can see the all the data that is coming here. And so now we'll head on to the next part. Here on the left side, you'll find the thing called boards. Click on that. You'll land on a screen like this. I hope most of you are getting the data in your virtual device. So here you land on a screen called your boards, and here we'll create a new board, right? Create a new board. So click on create a new board. I'll name it as IoT dashboard. I'll name it IoT dashboard. And okay, I hope you're following me. You can put any name here. Then I'll click on next. Now, again, we just need to, okay, fine. So once we created a board, that board will be shown here with the name, no cards. So there's a thing called board in which you can put different cards. So we'll see what cards are in a minute. So I hope most of you have got this screen and you have created your board. So you can click on the board and you land on a page with the name of your board at the top of your screen. So here we can add cards. So I'll click on add a new card. Then see through this we'll be displaying all the data that is coming from that virtual sensor into the screen in a graphical manner. So say I want to show the humidity, I'll select the gauge thing. I selected the gauge thing. Then I'll be asked which device am I trying to display the data from. So I know that my NodeMCU device is connected. So I'll click on that. Then I'll click on next. So the NodeMCU device is getting 3 different data. First, the temperature, humidity, and then the object temperature, right? So I have to select the data set which I want to display. I can't display all the 3 here. So you'll get when you click on the event thing, you'll by default get this thing called IoT sensor, which is the part of the virtual sensor that we are using. Just click on this inside the event edit text part. Then this property thing, again, you can click here and you can get the name of all the 4 parameters. This name is a constant thing. This is the name ID of the device. We won't use this. So we'll be using humidity, object temperature, and temperature. For this case, we are using humidity. Then we know that it's not a type text, humidity is a number. So I selected number here. Then I can set a unit. I know humidity is read in percentage. You can set the minimum and maximum value for the graph or the gauge part to be shown in the screen. I hope most of you have done this thing. Then I'll be clicking on next. So there are different types of gauges. So I want this medium-sized graphical kind of gauge here. So I click on next. I can choose a color. I want green. Okay, submit. So as you can see, I'm getting the humidity as 53%. Okay, let's go to the IoT sensor, virtual sensor part. Here, the humidity is 53%. Let's increase it and see what happens to that dashboard thing. We have made it to 73%. And see, here we are getting. So say we need to plot a graph. So we can add one more new card. Let's add a new card. And let's select some, okay, let's select line chart. Again, we'll select same device, NodeMCU. We'll click on next. We'll connect a new data set. Inside event, select IoT sensor. Then property, this time we'll be selecting temperature. Temperature again is not a type text. We'll select number. The unit is degrees Celsius in this case. Let's keep the minimum to max 0 to 100. Then we'll click on next. So because we have selected line chart, there are different sizes for the line chart thing. So we'll be taking this large size line chart. And I'll click on next. I'll keep this color. So this line chart is working in real time and fetching the data. So currently we have not changed our temperature, so it's a constant as a straight line, which is being shown here. But I'll change the temperature. I'll modify the temperature here. Say I'll decrease it first to 10 degrees, then wait for a while, and then increase it to say 54 degrees, right? Then I'll go back to that screen. As you can see, we first decrease it to 10 degrees and then increase it to around 50 degrees. So this is a live real-time display of the data, and you can add more data points. So here we were using virtual sensors so that it can be easily elaborated. You can add more cards on your own. Just try adding some other cards, some other data types like bar chart or donut chart or something like that. Or you can just display the value as it is, or some generic visualization types. Select object temperature this time and try to display it in your screen, in your dashboard. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Okay, someone has asked me that can you repeat the last part after creating the board part? Okay, do you still need to be told about this, or okay, you got it? Fine. Guys, any doubt? Please feel free to ask me. Those who have created, okay, so someone is again asking me to repeat it from the, okay, I'll repeat it from the board part. Okay, let's go back. First of all, we'll come to the boards part. Okay, boards, select boards from here. I've already created a board, that's why it is showing. Okay, I'll delete this board. Okay, your boards, right? I'll delete this board. I'll create a completely new board. Click on boards here, then create a new board. Give it a name, any name that you want. I'll say IoT data, something like that. And then I'll click on next. For those who are asking me anything in the chat, because I'm working in a different screen, I can't see the chat at the real time, so you can just unmute yourself and ask me while I'm doing anything. So I'll put the board name as IoT data and then click on next. Then we don't need to configure anything here. Just click on submit and a new board will be created with the name IoT data. As you can see here, no cards. So this is an empty board with no cards. I'll click on this board and this board is open now. And I can add more cards. So a card is a single unit which can display a single type of data that is being fetched from a sensor or a virtual sensor. So after I've created a board, I'll add a new card in the board. So this is for data visualization. This time I'll select bar chart to display the object temperature, say. So I'll select the device from which I'm displaying the data. I select Node MCU. Then I hope you're following, everyone is following. So I select Node MCU and click on next. You have to select whatever device you created here and whatever device is connected there and fetching the data. Okay, so for me, I had named it as Node MCU, so I'm fetching the data from that. You'll get your device names in this list. Mostly, you will be getting only one device. The next, then I click on connect new data set. Then click on event, you'll get a thing called IoT sensor. Click on that. Then properties, the different properties, these are the different data points, different data parameters that are available for us to be displayed. So I'll select object temperature. and we can no need to change the name. Then we can select it as number type. We know the temperature unit is degree Celsius and the range is 0 to 100, let's say for this application. Then I click on next. I'll see a sample here. I can resize it. This time I'll take a small part, okay, and then I'll click on next and submit. So I think my data is disconnected. That's why it's not showing here. But for most of you, you'll get a bar chart here, which will be displaying your data. Guys, any doubt till this? If you want me to repeat anything else or elaborate anything else again, you can ask me. So if you all have made at least one card, please put a thumbs up in the chat. If that card is being able to display your data in real time, please put a thumbs up in the chat. Guys, to be honest, cloud computing today is a very necessary skill for all the people, especially in the IT industry, as well as people in IoT and related fields. So you all must have some hands-on experience with the different cloud services. At least you must be aware of the so-called jargons used in the cloud industries. Most of the things are easy to understand, but because there are certain terms which are kind of new and not explained properly, that's why people think that they don't understand. Things are fairly simple, but if you try to understand these things, it will be really easy for you to be in the industry. And with this, I'll complete this session. Thank you, everyone. And if you have any doubt, you can feel free and ask me right now. You can connect with me through these links. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. And I'll just hand over to the management of IoThink. Okay, so someone is asking a question. Why did we use IBM and not AWS? Guys, AWS is a paid service. We can't use it for free, and even the free or student account thing is really, you know, difficult to make. We'll have to order something like very early, and then they cross-check everything. They ask for your credit card details, then only they allow access to free educational purpose AWS account. But most of the AWS services are not free to use. That's why we had to use IBM. But professionally, because AWS is very professional, that's why we are. That's why most of the companies. So someone is asking, is it easy to migrate to I think AWS. Okay, AWS after learning IBM. See, cloud, the basic platform, the basic features of clouds are same, but since there's competition in the market, there's competition between AWS, IBM, Azure, GCP, Google Cloud Platform. So these cloud service providers are competing with each other, and they are trying to provide more and more services and better quality services to their customers. So they are coming up with different kinds of ideas. Okay, so it might not be same in every cloud service provider, the way you deploy things, the way you manage things, but the basic cloud thing is fairly the same everywhere. You just need to understand some concepts, and then learning cloud after that. See, suppose you are learning a specific cloud service, say AWS, then you'll have a specific certification in that. It might be easy for you to migrate to a different cloud service in future, but specializing in a certain cloud service is quite different thing. Certain AWS certifications are so powerful that they can land you in a job. So, but they are very difficult. You have to pass really tough exams for that. So, any more doubts, guys? You can ask me.